Hello, and welcome to my talk, An Introduction to K3s. Just to level set, this is a beginner level talk and demonstration designed to give you a taste of K3s and hopefully whet your appetite to learn more. Quick bit about myself. My name is Craig Jellick. I'm a Director of Engineering at SUSE. One of the projects I look after is K3s. And if you want to reach out to me, you can do so through the social media links I have here. Please feel free to do so. I like to engage with the community. The agenda for today's demo is just a quick overview of what K3s is and what it can do. We'll jump right into a demo, then we'll come back to the slides to give you a few links about where you can learn more. All right, let's jump in. What is K3s? I like to start with it really is Kubernetes. The reason I like to start there is because throughout the years as K3s has been developed, there's this perception that has arisen that it's not really full Kubernetes or it's just a toy and it's not production ready. None of those things are true. It's a fully conformant CNCF certified Kubernetes distribution. It's absolutely production ready. It's out there in production today as we speak. One of the things that distinguishes it is that it's easy to install and operate anywhere. Single command can get you going. At the same time, it's very configurable either via environment variables, command line arguments, or a config file. Brings all of its own dependencies, so all you need is a modern Linux kernel. And most importantly, it runs not only on x86, your traditional server architecture, but on ARM v7 and ARM v8. This is important because early in K3s's lifecycle, it got a lot of adoption from home lab enthusiasts and home automation enthusiasts. They're running Raspberry Pis and other small computers, and K3s really presented a great way to easily manage their applications. That really helped us carve out a niche and a user base that has grown over time, and we've seen that develop into real production use cases. The other thing that distinguishes K3s is that it's optimized for a smaller footprint. We reduced the single binary size by eliminating some optional components from Kubernetes. Those are the entry storage and cloud providers. Those are very cloud specific, like a storage provider to launch EBS volumes in AWS. You don't need that for most K3s use cases. And if you do, you can use the out-of-tree solutions, which the community is gradually moving towards anyway. We reduce the CPU overhead by combining processes that would typically be multiple processes into a single one. For example, the Kubernetes control plane components, API server, scheduler, controller manager, those are all run in a single process, and that really reduces overhead. Lastly, we reduce CPU, memory, and disk read writes by defaulting to SQLite by default. It's great because it just uses far fewer resources than etcd. The trade-off is you can't get an HA data store with it. But that's okay if you're resource constrained or you only expect to run in a single node. If you do expect to run on multiple nodes, you can flip a flag and K3s will launch backed by etcd without any additional configuration on your part. And if you're in a cloud or data store and you have access to a SQL service, either from your cloud provider or from another team within your data center, you can point K3s at an external SQL database like MySQL, and that just works great. So what can you do with K3s? We've already talked a little bit about the ARM device, Raspberry Pi, home lab use case. This extends out to production edge scenarios, whether it's a x86 architecture or ARM device, single node, maybe a very small 3-node cluster inside of a retail location or in the back of a truck. K3s is perfect for that. CI/CD, it's really good. If you're developing a Kubernetes native application and you want to do some end-to-end testing as part of your CI pipeline, you can launch K3s right in your CI pipeline, deploy your application onto it, run your tests, and tear everything down. Very fast to spin up, really light on resources. Next, we have the developer desktop use case. K3s was developed by a community member, and it's really great for testing elaborate setups. You can launch one or more Kubernetes clusters, each with one or more nodes in them, and it assumes you have Docker running on your desktop. At the other end of the spectrum, we have Rancher Desktop, which it just gives you a single node, single cluster, and that's really great for application developers who just need a place to launch their app locally to make sure it works on Kubernetes before pushing it. Finally, we have the cloud and data center use case. touched on that briefly. You can launch K3s, back it by either etcd or an external SQL database. And we see many production scenarios here that are out in the wild today as we speak. We do this with our own hosted Rancher solution, where we have Rancher running on top of K3s backed by a cloud-hosted SQL solution. It's absolutely good for that use case as well. Let's jump into the demo. So what I'm going to do in this demo is first launch a K3s server node on a cloud-hosted VM. Here's the command to do so. I'm just providing one argument, and that's the shared secret that will be used both on the server and the worker nodes in order to form a cluster. This would just take a quick few seconds here. You can see we're already up and running. Let's check out the nodes. You can see the single control plane node there. It's important to note that kubectl was not on this server. It was installed by K3s. Like I said, it brings all of its own dependencies. So this is a VM running in the cloud. Let's jump over to my Raspberry Pi running locally and launch that as a worker node. Grab that command. Okay, you can see this command, I'm providing the token, and I'm also providing the URL of that server node. That'll tell this node that it should be launched as a worker. You can see it's pulling the latest stable release, but in this case, you can see it's pulling the ARM HF architecture of K3s because we are, in fact, on an ARM system. You can see that right here. So with that, K3s is launching the kubelet. We can jump back to our server node here and watch for that node to show up. Okay, so there we see it coming in. Now it's ready. I can kill this watch command, run it again. You can see we have two nodes in this cluster. One has a control plane node, and the other, the Raspberry Pi, is a worker node. So next, I want to just deploy a very simple application. This is just Nginx web server. So this is what I'm going to deploy. You can see it's just simply Nginx, nothing fancy there. Let's deploy that. Okay, I'm applying that file I just showed you. And we can watch deployments here to see when it comes up. Okay, so there it is. It's getting ready to come up here. Take less than a minute or so. This might actually take longer than launching K3s itself. Okay, there we see it is now up. Let's check out the pods that were launched as part of that deployment. So you can see here one Nginx pod is running, and it's running on our Raspberry Pi node. Let's see what we can do next. So the next thing I want to do is expose that Nginx deployment. So I'm going to expose it as a node port and just using this simple expose command. All right, it is exposed. Let's check it out. So exposing creates a service. So I just listed services here, and you can see Nginx, the node port service is here, and it's going to run on host 32724 of my Raspberry Pi. So let me jump over to my browser here and go to that. So Pi host and hit here. And you can see just like that, we have Nginx up and running on an ARM v7 device. Super simple. And this is just really scratches the surface. So that's the demo. Like I said, it's just meant to whet your appetite. There's so much more you can do with it. Here's where you can learn more. First, I would encourage you to visit the GitHub repo. We've put some effort into the README to kind of explain what you're getting with K3s. The CNCF and Rancher YouTube channels have a lot of good content there. So if you go to either of those and search for K3s or just search YouTube in general for K3s, you'll get a ton of good talks, master classes, all sorts of things. The Rancher website has extensive documentation on K3s and how it can be used with Rancher. And then finally, there's just so many cool things folks have done with K3s that I really encourage you just to put K3s and your interest into your browser of choice and search, and you'll come up with some really interesting results. So yeah, any one of those will be a great way to get started with K3s. Again, you can reach out to me on social media, and the community is on our GitHub, in our GitHub repo as well. We're responding there to issues and discussions. That's it. Thank you for attending, and I really appreciate your time. Have a good day.